Hello, welcome to the Commerce Hero Show. Today we are with Sonja Riesterer. I try to pronounce the last name right. Magento Master and Marketing Manager at IntegerNet out in Germany. Sonja, how's it going?
Good. How are you,
Awesome.
Kaden?
I'm good. I'm good. A little hot. My AC doesn't seem to be turning on right now. Hopefully that'll kick in. Yeah, no, I was looking forward to this chat. I saw a question recently. I can't remember where. It might have been Reddit, where somebody was asking about how I get a lot of questions, and I know you didn't like the idea of like how to be a Magento master type topic, but people ask that question all the time. So, but I think what you had said was like, it's more important to talk about how to contribute to the community and things like that. So we'll um, we'll talk about that. But I saw a question where somebody was like, how do you become a Magento master as a non-technical person? And I was like, Sonja, I should talk to Sonja. Um, but anyway, so tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do, and those types of things.
Hi, my name is Sonja Riesterer, marketing manager at IntegerNet, and I was elected as a master in 2018 and 2017. I have a degree in English and American culture and business studies, so very far away from developer. Um, I do like tech. I do like HTML, but that's about it. Um, I started with working with Magento related stuff in 2013 as a sales and marketing manager for another agency focused purely on Magento. Um, I started taking on more project management tasks there. Realized that it's very interesting because you are always informed about what's going on, but also realized that it's not exactly made for me. And so when I switched jobs, I went back to being marketing manager. Um, Back at the old job, I started with organizing meetups because my boss was the founder and organizer of the local meetup for Magento. And so I naturally grew into being his helping hand and, well, starting being more in touch with the community. And I really liked that. There were very many very nice people around, and they would be so kind and helpful to ask and answer all my questions because I had a lot. Um, and that kind of got me started to, well, to just be part of this. Yeah.
Be part of the community. So,
Yes.
so how many years has it been total that you've been kind of in the Magento space?
5.
5.
Yeah.
Nice.
Went by so
Um,
fast.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like not a lot of agencies have, I don't know if it's different in Germany, but I feel like not a lot of agencies have marketing managers or a lot of obviously a lot of salespeople and things like that. But I feel like not a lot of them have marketing managers. Do you think is that the case?
That's true. Uh, it was it was certainly exceptional for the first agency where I started because there were only two people, the founder and another developer, and they put me on top as a third one. With marketing and sales, that's very rare. And with IntegerNet now, we are 10 people, and of only 10, having one who is, well, very focused on everything not contributing to reflected hours. That's certainly something not every agency can afford. And yes, but it's helped us grow and become more visible.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I'm sorry.
we also have our own tiny little Magento store. So that's something that I spent some time on.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
It's about camping accessories. So we have two CEOs, and one of them is very much into camping with camper buses and camper vans. And since we are very busy with projects, he doesn't find a lot of time to work on this store. So I stepped up and, well, I manage it very much whenever he's not able to.
That's really cool. It always surprised me that more agencies don't do that. Don't have a store in some capacity just for the experience of managing everything end to end. And as an agency, you have all this expertise around building stores and things like that. It seems like a natural thing to have your own, kind of as a side project or something like that.
Though still, since we are only 10 people in a small agency focused on something else, the store itself is only also rather small. So compared to our clients with APIs going to ERPs, PIMs, whatever, we do it differently. I mean, we work almost exclusively in the Magento admin panel, which is rare with the bigger clients. But still, yes, it's definitely a good way of practicing, experiencing it firsthand, and know how it's done.
Yeah, totally. You
Get
could
to know the config panel.
right, right. You could probably use Shopify if you really wanted to.
Probably yes, if we wanted to.
Emphasis on if. By the way, shout out to my brother Devin. He's in the chat room here. Anybody in the live chat, feel free to ask any questions that you have at any time for Sonja or for me or for anybody for that matter. No, that's really cool. So what types of things have you done, as far as marketing goes for IntegerNet, and how have you seen that help the agency to grow?
It's certainly organizing events. I mean, we have the Magento meetup here in Aachen, founded by the other boss of me, Andreas von Studnitz, and Roman Senna, who's now more into something apart from Magento. And that's been going on for some years now. And it's even though it's not so big, we often have some 10, 15 people around. It's still something that's brought us into contact with other people, helped us experience, and also something to regularly blog about. I mean, we've been very busy with our blog recently. We have the good quality tech content coming from Andreas and Fabian Schwengler on our team, and also other colleagues, Sandro with front-end topics, and whatever else is on our minds and that we want to put out there. Sometimes some disagreeing with Magento, we just put it on our blog. Yeah,
Got it.
It's a good way to have your voice be heard.
Right. Are you guys a partner?
No, not yet.
It. Nice. I like, as somebody that's never been a partner and things like that. I don't know. There's something I like about what I like is, like I was talking to Vinay yesterday, and what I like is people that can just be totally independent. The partner program is great, and obviously it's a huge part of the ecosystem. But there's certain times you can't really say, like you just said, you can't really say certain critical things, and that's just what I like. I just like when people can just say whatever they think about, whether something's good or bad or whatever.
Yep. And that's something that our clients value because they know that they get an honest answer from us.
Yeah, and totally.
Even if they call and say, well, we don't want to do Magento, then we're like, sorry, that's the only system we support currently. Well, sometimes they realize while talking to us that maybe they might be better off with an agency that's honest and a different system. It's a rare value to have, I guess.
Even in Germany, I feel like in the US, I could imagine, people being very salesy and maybe less honest. But I feel like in Germany, the way I picture it is that everybody would be more honest, direct, no exaggeration. They never say anything's awesome,
Since the Lego movie, they say it more often.
Which movie?
The Lego movie, the tiny toy
Oh,
figures,
Lego.
and
Oh, Lego.
they
Yeah,
had
yeah,
the song "Everything is Awesome." Um,
yeah.
by the
Nice.
way, I have the iPad standing on a giant Lego stone. So
Nice.
I would show you,
Respect.
but that would just show you the surroundings too much.
Yeah, that
So
break everything.
back to topic. Yes, in Germany you have a lot of agencies and freelancers that are completely independent. Actually, I'd say it's a small amount of Magento focused agencies that are partners. So yes, we usually have a lot of critical voices, sometimes pessimistic voices, talking straight from their heart, whatever they feel like. Yeah, so it might be less salesy here than in the US in general, I'd say, especially after the Imagine experience.
Yeah. But you're still saying that the way you guys work can is somewhat rare compared to other the level of honesty that you have or is somewhat rare
Yeah,
compared.
yeah. We have a very good standing, so we don't have to worry too much about getting in new projects. And we keep our clients for a very long time. And that's our aim, really, to have a more of a relationship. So if you finish the project, that's just a milestone for the next things coming up. So it's not like we need to get in new projects all the time. And I guess if you don't have the sales pressure on you, you can breathe a lot more easily and just say how it is.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, Fabian Schmengler, Andreas von Studnitz, two very well known and respected people in the Magento community. Um, and so you guys have a great reputation. The German market is really interesting to me because with Commerce Hero, I'm working with freelancers or agencies or people looking for work, and like nobody in Germany is ever, sorry about that, I touched the mic, is ever available at all. Everybody's booked for months at a time. I mean, there's so much. Here's the thing, if I ever find somebody in Germany that is available, it makes me worry whether they're good or not. Like automatically.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I guess this people likes to plan a lot, and they know what's coming towards them, what's in their pipeline, and be booked well in advance. Yeah, and then again, we are not as moving as fast as, for example, Dutch stores and agencies. There, I heard it from, I think it was Sander Mange, who said that clients in the Netherlands actually are, well, if they are not happy with their agency, they just move on. And for Germans, that's so much work to do. And you've just established something and now you have to build up something new. I mean, we're not really into changes. Yeah.
I think I heard somebody say that it might have been Andrew Howden. Do you know him?
Mm-hmm.
Sight words. I think he said Germany is like a train. Like it moves. Once it's moving in one direction, it's. I can't remember how he said it. I'm butchering this, but basically, yeah, somewhat slow moving, very organized, but
Yep.
like what you're saying, not
It
not as
stays on
interested in
its
change.
rails unless there's something very extremely happening.
Right, right. Got a question from Devin here. He says, "I'm not in the field, but I'm curious, how powerful do you feel Magento is?" Maybe one of the ways to approach that question is like you said, you get calls from people and you say we only do Magento. There's some interesting competitors coming out. Actually, I think some of them based in Germany. I want to say like Shopware and Spryker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if I think they're based in Germany, but
Yep.
do like what are those conversations? What do those conversations look like? and I know you're not in, I assume you're not in sales. I don't know if you're on those sales calls, but what do those conversations look like when people are asking, well, how powerful is Magento? How do the feature sets compare to some of these other options?
We recently had a sales meeting where I was part of it as a solution specialist, knowing the back end quite well, just to answer if that's possible or not. And there was actually a lot of things where you could say that's possible or extendable. I mean, Magento is so flexible and able to be customized that that's a great plus. There are basically no limits to what you want to do with it. Sometimes it might not make any sense anymore, but there is, if you start with the platform, you can very easily grow with it. Different markets, different brands, whatever. There is lots and lots of possibilities. Well, I guess the hardest years from Magento are now about to be in the past with the transition to Magento 2. There was a point when the Magento 2.0 was released and Germans looked at the example store of Seat, the car company, and they only had their store for some like collective cars, etc., like small miniatures. And there was lots and lots of things in it where you would say, I wouldn't put that in a press release as a German. So yeah, that was a time when even we as an agency couldn't really say, hey, new project coming in, let's go Magento 2, because it simply wasn't ready there. And I feel like we're now moving away from that, working to something better. So I'd say that a lot of, if Magento finally decides on what kind of groups it wants to target, like small, medium, or rather bigger companies, they can achieve a lot. But currently, it sometimes feels like, do they really still want to cater the smaller companies? Like with installing extensions from the marketplace just from your backend, and that's like, But then again, everything they put out there, like order management, etc., that's more targeted for large clients.
Right. Yeah, definitely. There's a move sort of up market. By the way, Ignacio Riesco's in the room. What's up, Nacho? Me haces una pregunta, eh? Ask a question here. We're gonna get Nacho. We're gonna get Oscar on in pretty soon. Yeah, cool. In June, and we'll try to get Nacho on too. Yeah, I mean, definitely, there's a move up market, and like you were saying initially, your clients, you're always dealing with ERPs and PIMs, and they're larger clients that have different needs and things like that. And there's a side of the market that's on the smaller side of the market that isn't in love with the fact that they're making that move, but it probably makes sense. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. On the other hand, the smaller merchants and agencies, they're the ones who put in so much effort into contributing and like keeping the ecosystem alive and talking about it. Because sometimes you get the impression that the bigger clients, they don't care too much about the platform they're working with. They only want it to work. I mean, if it works, everything's fine. But the smaller agencies and merchants, they think more about it because they can't move away from it so easily, maybe. Stockholm syndrome.
Right. Yeah, that might be what it is. Yeah, it's there was a conversation the other day about development environments in Magento Cloud. And I still don't know exactly what the difference is, but the difference between not having certain type of a development environment and my buddy Eric, who runs a hosting company, was saying like 90% of his customers are doing development in a dev environment over like SFTP. And then they have Git on the server where they can commit things. And I was like, I mean, why wouldn't you just use Git locally? But there's like certain portion of the market that makes sense for. And so, different size companies, different needs. Um, you mentioned something earlier, which I thought was interesting. You said some people can be critical or bordering on pessimistic, I think were the words that you used. And I'm curious what you, especially within the context of, some of these things we're complaining about and that people complain about in general. What do you think is the line between being critical and pessimistic?
Well, if you don't give anything a chance of exciting you, then you're pessimistic. Or if you just have a pre-formed opinion that it's not going to be good, yeah, might be even depressed. Well, the German culture is it's not as excited and awesome as the Americans are. We don't smile that much.
You smile a lot. I have to say, your superpower is every single time you show. This is so funny. Every single time you show up in a photo, there could be 15 people in the photo that didn't know it was happening and are looking in different directions. You'll be the one person staring right at the camera and smiling.
You know what is my superpower? I notice the photographer when he walks into the room.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, whatever happens at this conference, it would be nice to have some nice photos of me afterwards. and don't feel like a photographer is a nuisance, because I think sometimes people feel like they would be more comfortable if he wasn't around, or she. Just thinking about Imagine here. But the photos I saw of Imagine taken by, I think it's Sean is his name, the photographer of 2018 and 2017, they were really cool. And he smiles too. And if you just smile at the person and not at the camera, happens. It's good.
There you go.
I was trained to do that by Rico Neitzel, Magento developer and photographer. So yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't realize we got to get him on one of these interviews too. But he's been in the community for so long. I didn't realize he was a photographer.
In his free time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everybody's a photographer in their free time these days, yeah. Right?
And he was the photographer of Meet Magento Germany. Also in the years when I first went there, I met him at the after show party, and the next morning I was sitting in some row at in the talk, and he was taking photos and realized me sitting there all alone. So he just came up, sat next to me, looked at my name tag, said, "Huh, so just wanted to know your name."
Yeah. Sounds like a friendly guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But so you were saying that, people in Germany, they don't say awesome as much. They don't maybe smile as much, which is funny because I think of you as one of the smilier people in the Magento community.
I spent a lot of time with internationals, and a smile always helps if you don't find the right words.
Right. When in doubt, smile and nod.
Yep.
Smile and nod. Yeah, no, I think that's I like the way you put that very simply, as far as the difference between being critical and pessimistic, is if you never give it a chance, or you have no interest in being excited about something. And because it's hard, because like I put some things out there and then I got a bunch of people yelling at me, and and then I feel like, am I just being negative? Like sometimes you question yourself a little bit. Like, am I just being negative for the sake of being negative? But I don't think I am. Like, I want to be excited about stuff. I like being excited about things. And at the same time, I think it's important, if there's issues with something, to say it. So that's a good way to put that. How you been to Imagine a couple times, or was this your
Once,
okay,
once
this was your
2017. Yep.
yes.
This year, I made the decision to stay at home so I could take part in the ballroom dancing tournament. It was tough seeing all the tweets coming in and not being
Yeah.
there.
I'm pretty sure a ballroom dancing tournament is a lot cooler than a developer conference though.
Well, if you don't mind your feet to hurt a lot, then yes.
I do mind. I don't like when my feet hurt. So how long have you been into ballroom dancing? What kind of ball is it? You tango or what do you do?
It's standard, so it's slow waltz, tango, quick step, and slow fox so far. And if we get better, we add Viennese waltz, the Wiener Walzer. I started when I moved to Aachen some 2.5 years ago. And I first started off with some regular courses at the local university because they offer a sports program for everyone. And that was fun. But I realized that the other ones weren't too interested in getting the technique right, like knowing exactly how to put your feet on the floor to get the smoothest movement. And so when my former dancing partner decided to dance with his girlfriend instead, um, I was looking for a new dancing partner and found someone who was already into tournaments. And so I was like, well, I'm looking for someone to dance about 2 times a week. And he was like, I'm looking for someone to dance, well, at least 3 times a week.
Uh,
And I was like, okay, I give it a try. Uh, and it was really good. It brought me to tears sometimes because I have I'm very ambitious from time to time. And sometimes your memory for movements just takes more time than your head. So you know exactly what to do, but your body just can't do it. And that's so frustrating, especially if you really want to. But yeah, he's been, well, together with our official coach, he's been, well, putting a lot of time and effort into training me to become on the level that he is. And currently, we're just almost on the same step. I still have to reach up some more, and it's good. But then again, after the last tournament, I realized that I had to turn down the intensity of the training a bit because it actually was a bit too much. The last couple of weeks, like some 4 times training per week, it's just a lot if you have a full-time job.
oh wow,
Yeah.
that does. Is it a couple hours a day or?
Yeah, so it usually takes about 3 hours. I mean, that includes getting to the to a sports club, changing your outfit, warm up, training, stretching, some muscle exercises, etc., and then going back home. But if you put that on top of an 8-hour day and a bit of commuting, it's a lot.
Yeah, wow, that is a lot. By the way, Damian Culota says you should come to Argentina to do tango.
Absolutely, but I'm afraid I might disappoint him because European standard tango is a bit different from Argentinian tango. Yeah,
Got it.
I think.
Sorry, Damian. Sorry about that, buddy.
No, no, no. Just
Uh,
no need to
are
feel
you
sorry.
thinking about going to meet Magento or any of the Argentina events or do you ever make it out to any of the Argentina or South America, any of those events?
Not yet. It's well, I would like to go. If there was a Meet Magento Cuba, I would probably be the first one to sign up. Um,
Hey, that
I want
sounds
to
fun.
go there. um, Argentina hasn't been too high on my bucket list so far, uh, but it would definitely be a different experience, and very sure to be cool to experience the Argentinian tango. Um, but I guess that from a agency perspective, it wouldn't be too interesting for us.
Yeah.
Like it's unlikely that we get client there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
A very German response to that question.
yes.
Um, no, it's funny. I actually I spent some time abroad in Ecuador when I was in university, and I took the salsa class, and our teacher was Cuban, so learned salsa. That's actually how I met my wife, and I haven't done it for. We really want to get back into it. The kids are slowing us down a little bit, but um, salsa dancing is pretty fun. Much less precise than I'd imagine than ballroom. Um,
Absolutely. But
yeah,
it's way more fun and more ways of expressing yourself. Yeah. Standard ballroom
yeah,
dancing is just a smile and keep your head turned away from your partner.
yeah. When I watch it, it seems very difficult, but it seems very like I don't know, almost forced. You know,
um,
I don't know. It must be a lot of fun for the people that are doing it or challenging or something. Um,
it's not as it's not so much fun. Um, it's well,
Rewarding, maybe.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's still dancing. You move to the music and you can sing along, especially during the training, not at the tournament. Um, but then it's a lot of holding your posture and keeping your shoulders down, your arms up, which is tough, and your neck bent and your head up, and then make it all look so easy. Uh, but still, it gives you a lot of sore muscles that you
Yeah.
didn't know even could exist. Um,
Right. So as far as the I was talking to Vinay yesterday about like how he feels the Magento Master Program has kind of impacted the community as a whole as far as um, incentivizing people to contribute, things like that. How have you liked being in the program, and how do you feel like what do you think the impact has been on the community as a whole?
I think we need to wait 2 more years maybe to see how it turns out. There is certainly a change felt. I mean, questions like, how can I become a Magento master? That's like, that hasn't been there earlier. Maybe it was like, how can I become more popular, more visible, more, I don't know, have a better reputation or something like that. Or how can I become someone inside in the inner circle? If you try to become a Magento master, not want to be pessimistic here, but uh, that can be tough. Um, I mean, we're a whole big ecosystem, and there are about 20 masters each year. And if you want to be one of them, you actually have to do a lot and make it visible. I think that's one of the important points that should be added to the list of how to become one. It's to be able to promote yourself, and but that put that on the last step, because earlier you should try to promote others. I would recommend for someone to rather aim to be one of the top contributors, maybe just looking for becoming one of the quarter of the month, some smaller steps and goals in between. Because well, when the Magento Masters were first announced, I think it was 2016, the first year. They were announced one by one, and I was like, "Whoa, these people, they've all done so much." And then I thought it would be super cool to be one of them. And the next thought was, but that's probably not gonna happen. But still, somehow it meant that if you put in a lot of effort, you might get a reward and an award as well. The wonderful glass figure.
Do you have it here? You gotta.
It's in the office,
Ah,
together with the one of Fabian. I mean,
okay.
I think we're the only agency with two Magento masters in-house.
Hey.
So, woo.
Wow.
And they look more impressive next to each other.
I can imagine. I can
Yeah.
imagine.
But since we both got reelected this year, we might just have one in the office and one at home. It's a rare luxury, I'd say.
You're not gonna know what to do with all those Masters awards. You're gonna just
Yeah.
pile them up in the closet. You're gonna have like 75 of them before you're done.
No. I think there are regulations to prohibit something like that.
What do you think are the things that you've done? We talked a little bit about organizing events and making your contributions visible. What do you think are the things that you did that contributed to that?
It's easy for me to set it up chronologically. So I started off with writing blog posts. Whenever I had a question about Magento that I didn't want to ask my colleagues because they were so busy and you don't want to interrupt concentrated developers, and I couldn't find a proper answer online, I would just, research whatever I had, maybe ask Rico, and afterwards write a blog post about it. Maybe sometimes just translating what I had read in English to the German community, or just adding different sources in it. And from there, I went on with the company Twitter account to make it more visible. And then we had the Magento meetup in Hamburg that I co-organized then and held some talks about Magento topics, or mostly then marketing topics rather. And I think the first talk at a real event was at Meet Magento Switzerland about personas, so very marketing. And then it was the meetup in Aachen, where I had switched jobs, and I became one of the team of organizers of Major Conference, and hold a lot more talks. We had Christmage, the Christmas Magento event in Aachen. Super
I remember
cool.
seeing that. Yeah.
That was
What was
really
that
cool.
about? What was that like?
I think it was the idea of Andreas von Studnitz from our team. And we were just talking about taking the usual Magento meetup in Aachen that happened in December from the Christmas market and turn it into something bigger, make it a day-long event. And then we were talking about names. Christmas, Magento, Christmage, or Mage Christ, or whatever. No, Christmage. It was selected then, and we wanted to have more of a gathering, a size that was still able to have a bit of a Christmas spirit, so not too big. And I think we aimed for 70 people max and ended up with some 50 or so. And that was really nice. We had some Dutch people, since we are at the border from Germany to the Netherlands, and a lot of Germans here. Obviously, Ben Marks gave us the honor of swinging by, and we wanted to have some topics that were interesting for everyone. I think it was one of those talks by Jisse Reitsma, about front-end development, and when he announced that on that day that they would have Reacticon in March. Back then it was still labeled coffee with James Sadlin. Yeah, that accidentally turned into a conference. So organizing events and translating Magento 2 That's a super easy way to contribute. Just set up a GitHub account. Even as a non-dev, you don't have to fear GitHub. And use it to work in the crowd-in project of Magento 2, and just pick your language. And if you feel like you know the backend and you know how orders are managed and how customers can shop in the store, you can easily add some translations there.
Mhm.
And then at Imagine, I had my first PR to the dev docs, and I have to admit it was the last as well.
Uh-oh.
Haven't done anything yet there. Again, yeah, sorry, Tanner. Um,
Didn't Tana move on?
yes, she did
Yeah.
shortly after my PR.
That's probably why she left. She saw that PR from you and she was like, "Oh my God, I can't see anymore. So
she,
bad."
it was an easy PR. I was just I think correcting some structures and some headlines, spelling, etc. Nothing technical at all. Just the knowledge I have of writing texts and English language applied to the DevDocs. So easy. And I still have the digital post-it on my laptop how to do a PR to the DevDocs. It's some constant reminder of
Nice.
work I should have done. Yeah. And then there was
Nice.
the one tweet I read about the Pac-Man rule. And I was like, huh, that's interesting and could be helpful. And I just, retweeted it. And since the Meet Magento Poland was coming up, I think I tagged them and said, how could we do that in Poland as well? And it basically blew up. I can't describe it in any other way. But I don't know, maybe it's you probably wouldn't have seen this on Twitter unless you were already somewhat interested in the topic of including people. Um, yeah, and
The Pac-Man thing is has gone far and wide. I think I heard Sherry mention it in Titans Austin, and then I've mentioned it a couple times, and I love I'm a big Pac-Man rule fan.
yes, it's really cool. Uh, I've been to enough conferences to feel like super excluded when you're in a room with people talking and you don't know anyone. And it goes a long way if you just have a group of people talking and leave some space for someone to join and greet them with a smile, and they might just listen to what you're talking about already and say like, hey, I know something about that, or what about this? And that could, well, be the start of something great.
Yeah. Um, I know that yeah, I love that. It's just such a simple, actionable idea. I feel like a lot of the times the discussions around inclusion can what I loved about the Pac-Man thing was just how practical it is. And it seems like I know we wanted to talk about inclusion and things like that in general. It seems like sometimes uh, the things that people say are less actionable and more just like you guys all suck kind of thing. Um, and so I appreciated that about that in particular. What are just in like what are some of your thoughts overall on the topic of inclusion? Where would you like to take this discussion?
Um, the next, the next project I have coming up are a table at Meet Magento Netherlands to just for everyone to sit there and talk if they want to, like super welcoming, just like, hey, I'm here if you want to talk to me, super cool. If you want to just sit here and talk to someone else who might happen to sit here, perfect. And then the next thing is at Meet Magento Germany, we organize a welcome wagon sort of thing. I found that on Twitter as well from a different conference, different shop system, just to have a place where newcomers can meet and find someone to talk to. Because if you're at a Magento focused event for the first time in your life, you'll feel like you don't know anyone and you might not fit in, or people might not be interested in talking to you. And that can take a real toll on you. That can make the whole conference day feel like wasting time, maybe, or just feeling super uncomfortable. So my idea here is, together with Andreas and Fabian Blechschmidt and Claudia Teubner, we want to create a little meeting point on the first conference day in the morning, just for half an hour, where anyone is welcome to come together, especially newcomers and newbies, new timers, first timers, however they want to call themselves. And we'll organize some kind of, like a frame around it and some questions to get people talking, and maybe find out that the neighbor sitting next to you is actually also working in marketing. Hey. And just to make sure that people are able to connect some names to faces, and have maybe a conference buddy for the following hours, or just be sure that if they walk the halls during the talks, they see faces they have talked to already, or they just feel like they can smile at them, or just join their Pac-Man group, whatever. So that's basically it's not supposed to be very much like the American Welcome Wagon company. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I am.
So the Welcome Wagons is a company who visit people who move to an area, like new residents and often new homeowners. So they would just go there and talk to them, tell them about the neighborhood, and maybe have some brochures of local companies with them, and just make sure that they know what's around them, what's going on, and maybe find new customers as well. I don't know. And this is turned into a term for basically greeting someone that's new. Not only at conferences, but wherever you go, a welcome wagon would be people that actually put an effort to greet someone. And that's what we try to do here. Make sure
Okay, yeah, I got it. Yeah, I didn't realize that was a company. I'm definitely familiar with the phrase. And that's that I'm totally down for that. So if there's ever an event, Imagine or whatever, like I'm totally down to be involved in that. I think that's a great idea, and that's really cool that you guys thought that up.
Yeah, I'm still looking for a German translation, really, because we don't have welcome wagons. We don't greet someone that's new.
That's so funny because the joke is always, what's the German word for X? Because there's so many German words for everything, but there's nothing for welcome wagon. That's hysterical. No, that's just a great, again, very super actionable idea that a lot of us can do. I know I've seen, for example, on Mage Talk, we've said things like, hey, if you're new, come say hi to us at Imagine. And I've seen other people do that before too. But at the end of the day, that's not super actionable. I mean, I guess it kind of is. They can walk up to you, but it's so much more straightforward to say, hey, here's an event. Here's the time, come to it. You're going to meet some people that have been around the community for a while. You're going to meet some new people. You're going to form some Pac-Man groups. It's a great idea.
Yeah. Actually, while talking about it, I think it might be a good idea to put the faces of the team of the Welcome Wagon on the website where we promote it, because that might help people recognize us. Otherwise, we need a big banner.
Yeah.
Signs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny with conferences because I have like on my Twitter avatar as an illustration. Nobody ever understands that that's me at all when they see me in person. And which part I don't know. I kind of like having a little bit of mystery, that you can tell if somebody knows you or not because they, you know what I mean? But I was doing videos leading up to Imagine, so people had seen those, and then more people walked up to me that probably otherwise wouldn't have recognized me. So it is good. It is good to just put your face out there so people know what they're looking for um, at the conference. So that's a great idea. Um, well, that's all. Anything else around just inclusion or conferences or things like that that
Well, not too much, no. Maybe just don't be too hard on yourself. No matter if you try to be inclusive or if you try to talk to new people, conferences are hard work. Networking is hard work.
right.
It's easier if you don't try to sell anything or don't try to explicitly network, but just to meet people. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. That's been my approach. I was talking to a friend yesterday who had a booth and was like, man, just staying at that booth all day versus being able to, and essentially selling to people that you don't know versus being able to just hang out and spend time, connect with people more informally is a lot easier and more interesting. So I think that can be tough. Um, well, cool. So let's say we've talked ballroom dancing, Magento Masters, inclusion conferences, um, Magento 2. We've covered a lot of ground here so far. Um, what are you guys starting to use you mentioned B2B, order management, cloud, some of these products that are getting pulled into the Magento ecosystem. Are you guys starting to use some of those?
Well, not yet really. We still have quite a lot of clients on Magento 1 that's still waiting for the migration. But I guess that, yes, there will definitely be some where it makes sense to add these packages and suites, especially like the B2B version. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really interesting. Have heard a lot of great things about it. By the way, Aurelio
Ah,
Benedi Matas says inclusive Pac-Man rule, great way for improving the Magento community. You know him?
yep. And oh, I hope I don't do a mistake here. Not not on my mind currently. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So a lot of interesting products and things coming out. What do you think are like the biggest challenges right now facing agencies, Magento agencies in Germany or in Europe or just in general?
Well, it's still we still need to learn what's going on with Magento 2 and how to use it properly. And also, the people that learn from Magento 2.0 of everything that's not working as it should be, they have to unlearn it with a newer version where it's fixed. So we see that with the trainings we do. Like for example, Andreas was recently at a training, and Sandro as well for front-end development, and I do some for store managers. And especially the developers sometimes have made some experiences with Magento 2.0, or they heard from someone else. And then you might need to train them that it's now changed. So without the backward capability not being there anymore at some places, that actually means that we left some of the parts behind that were not so useful. So I guess it's a bit like the memory of the whole community is a bit like a documentation, uh, often out of date.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's it's certainly something you have to keep up. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like when I did the video on the cloud and the things that I'd heard from multiple, probably like 5 or 10 people about some of the specific issues with cloud, it turned out some of those things were outdated, like deployment downtime, 15 minutes. It's more like 2 minutes. And some of the things related to development environments were out. Some of the things previous to 2.2, version 2.2. So that happens. That happens a lot when there's, people have a negative experience with something. That memory lasts even after those issues are resolved.
Yeah, some of them then stepping away from Magento Cloud and not experiencing what's new. It's certainly not helpful for the whole image of Magento. Yeah. And then I
Yeah,
think
totally.
one thing that still needs to be fixed in a way is the marketplace. I mean, we hear that we are active at XDN, the Extension Developer Network. And yes, Magento is listening and we're moving somewhat in the right direction, but it's still some way to go with, I mean, the long approval process, I get it. Manual tests are definitely not something you just do on the side, but I often hear that the frustration stems more from the marketing review, where they want to correct your texts. And some of the extension developers are more like, well, I actually know what it's doing and I don't want them too much to correct it or modify it in anything that's not true. So this might still be something where we all need to work together, make it better.
Yeah, actually, I did an interview with Jason Cochran, the head of engineering for Marketplace. And it was cool. He talked about some of the improvements they're going to, currently the tech review and the marketing review are a serial process. So you don't go to marketing review until you pass tech review. And so you can be waiting weeks and weeks, and then you get denied for marketing review. They're going to parallelize those processes. And then they're working on a lot of additional automated testing to reduce the burden for manual testing. And then they're also going to, I think, incentivize people to cover their extensions with tests, and I think with the functional testing framework specifically, so that if they have their extensions covered with those, they'll get prioritized through the review queue. So there's some interesting
That's
things.
good.
Yeah, some really interesting stuff that's landing in summer, this summer, the new version of the whole thing. So
Yeah. Well, definitely looking forward to that. Yeah.
nice, nice. Do you guys sell extensions?
We have the Solar, Intergenet Solar, it's called. It's for
That's right.
Magento 1 and Magento 2. And there's also the feed generator for Magento 1. So if you want to connect your store to the typical, mostly German platforms or Europeans like Idealo, Billiger.de, etc., that's helpful to create the feed for it. Yeah.
Got it.
But other than that, I mean, we have the agency and the own online store, and then some extensions, and we're like conferences and talks and events, and yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome. I love that. You got your hands in a lot of pies, as we say.
absolutely, yes.
Um, what was I gonna say? Yeah, that's super interesting with those extensions. Um,
And then
completely.
we were about what the community is working on, or etc. Some kind of in this frame. Uh, I think, well, there's currently some groups forming around diversity and inclusion that certainly still needs to progress. And I think one other point that's like connected to it, it's well, being more compassionate. I've recently started following April Renzel from Compassionate Code, also I think that's the name of her company. And she's promoting a lot of compassion, not just for others, but for yourself as well, which goes hand in hand with mental health. And she picked up well, more of a fight with the one of the founders, I think, of Stack Overflow, where they said that that's their culture is basically toxic, I don't have the feeling that it's too much of an issue with Magento. But then again, I think twice or even three times about posting something in the forum. Because you just know that sometimes there are just people out there who want to bring you down, or who just don't want to be helpful at all. And that's something that shouldn't happen in the open source community. So yes, maybe that's the next big topic, one of the non-dev topics.
That's really interesting. When you said you think twice about posting in the forum, you're talking about Stack Exchange or Magento forums or both?
Well, I've never really considered posting to Stack Overflow, even though I sometimes find answers there for my questions. I'd probably be more intended to use the forums, as I feel like they're more like-minded people. Maybe sometimes it feels like the forums are more for store managers and merchants, while Stack Overflow is more for developers. But that might just be more my view here.
I think no,
But
I think you're right.
yes,
I think you're right.
it's always like that. If you tweet something, there are a lot of tweets that went to the basket, the bin, and were forgotten about it. You don't want to put yourself too much in the front of getting hit, and that also means that there are a bunch of people out there who have questions, who could contribute, who could make their dent in the Magento universe, but our perceived culture or perceived environment keeps them silent, and that shouldn't happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, that's interesting. Because I mean, so with like Stack Overflow is interesting. I want to talk about that because I'm a little more familiar with that. With the four, like obviously Sherry does a great job as the moderator, and like with the Magento forum specifically, are you more talking about like their perception that you have of like, oh man, I have to double check this so I don't say anything dumb, versus like the way things are actually moderated, the way the communities like, do you think the community could be moderated better? Or in the case of the Magento forums, it's more just your perception about it?
In the forums, it's more mind perception. It's more like what I've experienced or seen on Stack Overflow that I'd apply to other forums as well. Probably not doing them justice. I have no example ready where I would say there was something bad going on in the forums. Definitely not. Especially after they were restarted, I felt like there were more moderators working on it, keeping them clean from spam, and also taking care that everything's done and answered as it should be. But still, sometimes you just realize that there are a bunch of very pessimistic voices on there who, especially in the days of Magento 2.0, who would just, let it be known that they were not happy.
Right. With and with Stack Overflow, I mean, it's I actually haven't used it in a while, but it can be tricky. I feel like in a sense they do a good job of sort of clarifying what the rules are. Like it has to be a question, it can't be a duplicate, things like that. I've been using Reddit a little bit more recently, which is kind of interesting. I keep getting, sometimes I get downvoted, sometimes I get upvoted. It's kind of random. And like, for example, I was posting links to these live streams I'm doing, and then they got downvoted, and I looked in the rules and it's like, hey, don't post links to your own stuff. And I was like, okay, fine. I could see how that would would be considered self-promotion. So then instead of posting links, I just changed it to asking questions. So like, for example, I said, hey, I'm doing an interview with a Magento master today. If you have any questions for them, let me know, and I'll get those questions answered and report back. So I'm not linking to my stuff. I'm just formulating it as a question. And then that would get downvoted too. So I'm like, so what's the rule exactly? And, it can make you feel a little discouraged from contributing. But on the other hand, if they're not strict, people can start to spam things. I guess that's a separate category. Like there's different categories. There's like something that's spam or borderline self-promotion. And then there's other categories of like, is that a good question? Is that not a good question? Sometimes it can feel a little arbitrary.
Sometimes it's just the way you use words. For example, if it's a question that was answered previously somewhere else, there's a nice way of saying, hey, look here, we already answered that. And there's also the bad way of saying, why are you not able to use the search? Can't you just look it up properly? These kinds of things. And for example, I tried not to use just whenever I explain something, because that means this is supposed to be easy for you. And it might not be for someone for whatever reason. I don't know. So saying you just have to do this and that, and I'm like, whoa, I don't know. Or it's the one that I explained something to, that they will just feel overwhelmed by whatever I try to tell them. So sometimes it makes just a change of
You
words.
just said just.
Yes.
How dare you?
Yeah, how dare I? Nothing's just, especially with tech and with Magento. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that, I was just going to say just, I was going to say, is that just a matter of context? Like certain things we would take for granted, like so I'm so self-conscious about saying just, like if it's like, how do you fill the water up? Well, just put it under the faucet and fill it up, and nobody would really be offended by that because it's common sense. Common sense can also be complicated. That's obvious. So is it a difference of like maybe more experienced developers, what's simple to them is not at all simple to somebody else, and so it can be intimidating for the person that's not as familiar. But like if I were to talk to an astrophysicist, they'd say just about things that I had no understanding about at all. And it's not necessarily their fault. It's just that they're much more educated on certain topics than me.
You raising the glass, I was just thinking of the of one of the famous tweets or memes, basically, with a cartoon guy trying to lick the glass from below, like, this is QA. When you're a developer, you basically put on the water in the glass, and now it's QA trying to drink it from below.
Right, like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so funny.
I think we need to understand that each and every one of us has a different history, different understanding, different knowledge. And if you try to, well, at least include 90% of your audience in it, you do a great job. There's a reason why conferences often put in beginner or intermediate or whatever expert level to tech talks. And it would be great if they communicate that to the speaker as well, so that they know what kind of audience they get. And I think we see this with Magento 2 a lot. There are simply things more on a beginner's level, and then there are things that actually take a lot of knowledge. And if you try to, well, either say upfront, I write this from the expectation that you know how to do this and that, that's fine, because then people know what they need to talk, what they need to ask if they don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Or you try to be, well, starting from the Big Bang and explain everything. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So basically, the internet is a big place, and the world of developers on the internet is a big place. So just being clear about what are the prerequisites to X, Y, and Z versus you saying just as if it should be obvious to you what those are.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, there's a reason why there's a digital post-it of how to do a PR to the dev docs in my laptop. I don't know how to do it just by heart. I need to check how it's done, and that's how it is. Everyone would laugh
right.
about it if they're a developer. Um, yeah,
Yeah. Totally. And there's things that you can do that, other, right? Like developer, other people can't do at all. So just being a little more empathetic or compassionate about what um, your audiences knows or doesn't know.
the marketing field is filled up with three-letter acronyms or even just two-letter acronyms, and that can be very hard to navigate because they're changing so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Marketing is a whole interesting world in and of itself. Do you know a lot of the other marketing people within the Magento? Obviously, you hang out with a lot of developers and stuff, but do
Not
you
too
know a lot?
many, no, unfortunately. Um, they often keep to themselves, or they focus more on marketing topics where, well, that I don't see on Magento events too much. Yeah.
Right, right,
It's a bit of a shame, but well, on the other hand, I get to see a lot of people with different backgrounds and different passions. For example, a new discovery for me basically was Anna Caron's talk at Meet Magento Poland about screen readers on Magento 2. There was basically, she just showed a product page of Magento 2 and how it was translated into, well, into words, read out. And that was eye-opening, I'd say. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, it probably didn't make a lot of sense.
No, and sometimes they're just um, some things,
Aha!
some features in the front end that you basically can't navigate using the screen reader, or at least it used to be. They then fixed it, so it got better. The whole accessibility is still a topic that definitely needs to be tackled. But then that's something that the USA are actually well, quite good at, aren't you? With all the
We've been we've we've been quite
triple A.
European in that regard.
Yes.
Yeah, the accessibility, ADA. I know Philip Jackson does a lot of work. They have a lot of specialty around accessibility. And then I think WCAG, I've been seeing questions about WCAG, which is the web accessibility standard or group or something
Mhm.
like that. And yeah, that's an interesting space. Do you guys have similar laws to that? We haven't talked about GDPR yet. Holy cow, we got to talk about GDPR a little bit. I'm just now
um,
realizing
I'm not aware of any laws like that, which is interesting.
that is interesting.
There should be probably, or maybe they just need a reform like a GDPR to be on everyone's mind. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
GDPR. It's
GDPR. What are your thoughts? I had my first client ask if I had a consultant, GDPR consultant, I could refer to them, which I have not gotten any responses to that yet. If you know anybody watching, let me know. But yeah, that's starting to.
There's this joke. Do you know a GDPR consultant? Yes. Can you give him my number, or can you give me his number or her number? No.
All right.
Well, end of
I
story.
love that. All right. I
It's
actually, when I posted about it, I had to say, this is not a joke. I really actually do need a G because I'd posted previously about the joke.
yeah.
So
It's well, I absolutely get the idea behind the GDPR, and I like it. I might even dare say that I love it, more in a love-hate relationship with it.
ooh, okay.
Even as a marketing person, well, European as I am, I got a bit annoyed by Facebook and Google and all the other big data centers and sellers. And so I started to fancy data privacy more. And hey, guess what? GDPR comes around the corner. Uh, but it's not really well thought out. As Carmen put it recently, she held a talk about it at the meetup in Cologne. Carmen Brehm, she said, it seems like they didn't have a single developer in the room when they talked about it and when they decided what to do, because there were simply things where you're like, how? Some things are so unclear defined, and some things are just basically impossible. So we're setting up contracts with all the merchants that we work with, which are in the broader sense of they allow us to use the data that they give us only for the reason that they intend us to use it. Basically, doing backups, restoring customer data, whatever, take a look in the store backend and see why the order didn't work as expected. And it's really cool to have a bit more of a sensitivity to the whole issue of data privacy and treat our data more professionally. But then again, there are some kind of things in these contracts that you have to have inside that are just nuts. For example, so if you as a merchant give your data to your agency, or if they have an access to the data, which they usually have, then you as a merchant have the right to inspect the offices of the agency. For example, check if they really put in a password for the laptop, and if they lock the laptop when they leave the room, etc. And this also applies to the employees of the agency when they work remotely in their own flat. So I have my laptop with me, which basically means under GDPR that our merchant clients have the right to come into my flat and see if I have it locked. And
That's crazy.
it's
And
nuts.
and do
It's
they technically do they have the right to show up at any time and just walk in the door, or do they have to, are they supposed to request? I know these details are not all worked out yet, which is half of the
and
issue.
these details actually are.
Oh wow.
They have to. We have to find a date at a acceptable time frame, which, depending on your contract, usually translates to 2 to 3 weeks, probably. And if they do the inspection at our offices, it should be during business hours, and it shouldn't interrupt our usual work any more than absolutely necessary. So yes, I might set the business hours of my own flat to, I don't know, Monday morning from 8 to 9, and that's it.
There you go.
um, it's
And then on the other hand, it makes sense in this. A lot of us work from home, and it's this great thing that we're able to do. It blends personal space and business space, and there's not a lot of regulation around it. But I can understand like saying, hey, if you have an employee, this doesn't just cover them in your office. If there's somebody else and they're using that same data that they have access to, we want to respect the privacy of that data. Then wherever they are they should be doing the same things. So I can kind of understand it, but it's also seems very intense.
Home office is definitely intense. Then again, thinking about working at Starbucks or I don't know, some kind of co-working space or just on the train, you see so many people who either don't lock their laptop or who just work on some kind of presentation. And if you sit in the row behind them, you can read everything. And often enough, you'll see state employees working on some kind of presentation, and you would actually think that they might have listened to a training or two about how to treat their data and their business ideas, etc. That's yeah, but
Right.
so in that regard, I think GDPR actually helps us be more mature about what we're doing, but it still needs to. Well, either we need to grow a thick skin of thinking, yes, there's a regulation, but that part won't ever be executed, or they might have to think about different rules of maybe just putting the right of inspection to the agency, so the employer would be here to inspect my flat and not the merchant itself. That might be
Right.
not. It will be okay.
Yeah, we'll have to see how all the details are enforced. I mean, you never know exactly what any law means until it starts to get enforced. Um, and Yeah, are you getting a lot of requests from clients around compliance? Are you starting to do work on that for clients?
Absolutely. Starting at cookie notice and adding a lot of checkboxes to the checkout, where they give the option to agree to well, what's optional, newsletter or not, any other promotional stuff. And then also what I discussed today was DHL, the German post or parcel service. You can either transfer only the address of the customer to them, or you could add the email as well. And if you add the email to the system of DHL, then that's something that your client should put consent in. So, yeah,
Got it.
it's like, yeah, taking away the notification of when your parcel will arrive, or taking away the option to have it sent to your neighbor instead of yourself, or have it redirected to your business. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, do you think that all of those additional options, and essentially we're going to create a bajillion check boxes everybody has to check. Do you think that will hurt businesses to an extent, hurt customer experience to an extent? I can imagine, sometimes, for example, when, you have a bunch of check boxes, you just click them all so you can get, be done with what you're trying to do.
That's a very un-German thing to do.
Very.
Guido Jansen once had a talk about cultural differences. And he said the only people reading your rules and regulations, etc., are Germans. And yes,
So
sometimes
I'm
we
talking to the
read them.
right person right now.
Yeah, definitely we have to add a lot of checkboxes, and that's going to hurt user experience, absolutely. But well, there are always ways how you can make it more natural, easier to do it. Sometimes just use some symbols and not just text. I went through a GDPR quiz, and they basically used emojis, more or less, or just to introduce the different answers, and that felt like fun almost. So if we're able to use some more emojis or whatever graphics, and have it feel more natural, more human, I guess might work out. It has to.
Right. It's got to. We're in too deep to go back now.
Yeah.
To non GDPR. By the way, Marcel Howery said, good point. Didn't know that. I'm not sure which point he's referring to, but you've made so many good points. It's impossible to know.
Yeah.
So interesting. So yeah, I've had somebody ask for some help. They're getting a lot of clients asking questions about compliance and things like that. And it'll be interesting to see how that works out. So yeah, well, cool.
There's a
Trying to
bunch of
think.
money to be made for anyone who knows his way around it. That's mostly lawyers right now, but yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of how these things, most laws end up making lawyers a lot of money.
Yeah.
Same with similar with accessibility. By the way, Marcel said the point about DHL and the mail address. Oh yeah, it was
Yeah. Yeah.
the point that you'd made. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of consulting work around this for people to help people out, which
Yeah.
is good for us. You know, hopefully it doesn't hurt things overall too much.
I think
But
it's for us in Germany, it's comparatively easy, since, as far as I know, GDPR was basically based on the German data privacy regulations, and then just added up some more. As we usually say, like, can't you send out a newsletter email blast? Nah.
Sonja, please, I wanted you to send a newsletter blast for this
And I
live
wanted to
stream.
use Mage Mail back then, and I just realized that all these features I can't use.
Yeah, it's funny actually. There was a guy who I think he had a client that was interested in Mage Mail or something like that, and then he quickly realized there was a lot of German regulation stuff that wasn't compliant. So he was like, he wanted to build basically Mage Mail for German privacy laws, and I was like, that's an interesting idea. I don't
That's
think he got
basically a newsletter tool with a double opt-in.
right. I actually heard, I think from it might have been this guy that there's been precedents, I think in Germany, for a company being fined for double opt-in email. I don't understand why or how. Have you heard about that one?
Yes, there's a case I know of. I know the developer involved personally.
Wow.
I'm not sure if I'm 100% informed about all the details. As far as I know, there might have been a tiny bit inside the email that could be understood as promotional, like not just about opting in right here, here's the link, that's it, but maybe add a sentence like, we currently have this and that on sale, promotional, not allowed.
So
That
it was the
might be it. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah.
gotcha. So it wasn't the email that was sent to people that had double opted in. It was the double opt-in email itself that had promotional stuff in it.
Yes, and it was only one person that started this lawsuit, and I think the issue was that they hadn't entered their email address themselves. So yes, that's.
Got it.
And then we recently saw a case where someone tried to spam others using Magento customer log creation. So
Mm-hmm.
they
I've
they
seen a
put
lot of.
in it's just crazy. They put in random email addresses they have from some kind of database they got from the internet, whatever. And as a name, they put in their spam message. It was whoa.
That's horrible. Um, I saw some really weird spam where they were using email addresses that they didn't own. Like they would use like tom at yahoo.com or different real email addresses. And they were just flooding. I think it was the customer account creation or the newsletter opt-in or something like that. And then they would get marked as spam because the people
Yeah.
with these email addresses didn't request it. But there was like there wasn't any, whoever was doing it they were not sending spam links. There was no financial incentive for them to be doing it. It's like they were just doing it to hurt stores somehow. It's such a strange thing.
Invested a fiber to pull their competition down.
That's the only thing that would make sense. Yeah. Probably Shopify was doing that.
Nasty people.
Can quote me on that.
Not that Shopify are nasty people, just nasty people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Email stuff. I'm a little bit removed from the email stuff now these days, since Magento was acquired. But actually, it's funny. I part of the reason why I ended up getting an insurance policy was because of that. I was like, "Whoa, what if somebody's, what if a German finds me or something like that?" And that was one of the reasons why I got like an insurance policy. But it's funny, it's interesting, and all the all of the European countries have slightly different laws around it. In the US, basically, if you have some existing business relationship, then it's okay to send email, so it's a little more flexible. um
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything. Anything else you wanted to talk about? Anything else that you wanted to point people to check out, or anything like that?
Have you seen the marketing for Deadpool 2? There was,
Marketing.
yes, a tweet, someone saying, we all live in 2018, but the marketing behind Deadpool 2 lives in 3018, because they put on Deadpool on DVD covers in stores where it shouldn't be, like Flashdance, the famous picture of the woman on the chair leaning back, and that being
Uh,
Deadpool instead. Their marketing is impressive. Yeah. And I think you can also find Deadpool themed Spotify playlists now. So
oh, nice. I don't know what my deal is. It's because I have kids. I don't never watch movies, but they were asking Vinay about Deadpool yesterday, and he was super excited about it. I don't. I mean, I see it every once in a while online, but I'm not following it. I don't know what the deal is.
Deadpool 2 is just released out in the cinemas recently. So yeah, on my watch list.
Got it. Got it. By the way, Bert Flaxton says very knowledgeable. Great stuff.
Thank you.
And so, well, Sonja, thank you so much. Everybody can check out did you say you're going to put up a website or a conference thing with your welcome wagon thing?
Yeah, the IntegerNet website. We have the blog there, and we recently published a post about the welcome wagon. So anyone who will be at Meet Magento Germany and feels like he needs some more people, or she needs some more people around her, welcome to join us. I think it's 9:30 till 10 a.m. And I'm still working on the blog post about how to contribute to Magento as a non-dev. It was a busy week. GDPR, etc.
Okay. Awesome. We'll check those things out. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Hope you have a great weekend. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who we're talking to on Monday, but I can't. Oh, David Manners. Talking to David Manners on Monday.
Cool.
So that should be really cool. We're going to talk mental health with David. I know we just barely touched on that a little bit with you. That would be interesting to talk more about. You know what the heck? We can talk. We don't have to close it out here. I'm curious what you think about it. It's something I'm thinking about. I was talking to a buddy today about it that was saying, it's good that you're talking about it. What are your thoughts on mental health in general in the German community overall, in the world, developer community, marketing community? Um, what are your thoughts?
Well, if you have a supportive environment, it all is easier. But even then, there are times when you just don't feel like yourself, or you feel like the rainy cloud above you won't go away anymore. Been there, not done with it. That so it's something every one of us is vulnerable to, especially, well, if you don't sleep enough, if you don't eat healthy, if you don't exercise, if you uh, don't have enough social contacts. I noticed that moving away from my family is something that, well, backfires every once in a while. So try to stay in touch with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's still a topic that's super important, and we just we can't afford to lose anyone for whatever reason. And what I recently saw is that one of the states of Germany, Bavaria, is about to pass a new law. So basically, anyone who is diagnosed with a psychological disease, or I don't know, disease is probably not the right term, issues, health issues, mental health issues, is basically on their watch list. And you have to be careful not to be put somewhere. I'm not 100% informed about this. Maybe hint to David, check it out. This is something that worries me as someone who knows about mental health and the how fast it might attack you. So if we already see states, governments frowning upon people admitting to have issues, it's bad news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I try to do my best to keep a healthy balance of work life and non work life, which work life balance means actually that your life only happens outside of work, but that's not true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like we've talked about the ballroom dancing, and you work at that. You work at improving that. You could say that's the form of work, but it's a different part of your brain. It's a different physical activity. It's
Yeah.
like you said, it's so important to get physical activity. I was uh I was reading on Reddit on the jobs subreddit, and initially just went in there because I wanted to find some ways to talk about Commerce Hero and stuff like that. And I was seeing these posts that were actually really kind of heartbreaking. People that don't have a job, don't really have any skills, depression, anxiety, a lot of issues. And I'm thinking to myself, man, like with what I do, I'm placing people that are very skilled, specialized developers, what highly paid. And I'm thinking to myself, man, how could I even begin to think about helping somebody that is not even motivated? And they say it like it's because of the issues they're having, they're not even motivated to try to work. Um, and I was talking to a friend of mine who's actually gone through some significant issues around mental health, and they said, listen, you have to start with the basics. You got to start by exercising, getting physical activity every day, like just doing that. And he showed me some studies on how that improves things overall. Like just start with those basics. And this probably isn't super relevant to people that are watching, because you're probably already gainfully employed. But yeah, just exercising. So strict, so basic, not that complicated, but can be hard to do consistently, and can really help people to build some self-esteem, build some positive momentum, and things like that.
Yeah. We have to understand that with mental health often comes a change in the chemicals in your brain, and to counteract that's super hard. And exercising, and especially doing it outside, is one of the ways that can help, by just I think it's some kind of usual reaction a human usually shows, but still, if you're deep in depression, just going out for a walk won't help at all, or not significantly. Yeah, so exercising definitely. I find that eating the right food helps as well, which is hard because if you feel down, you often go and grab some soul food. That's usually high fat, high sugar, carbohydrates.
The good stuff.
Yes, the good stuff. Your
Yeah, it's
video is
absolutely.
gone.
Oh, my video's gone? Uh-oh.
Yeah, at least for me.
Oh, okay. I can still see it. Might come back. I'm still sometimes it freezes, but I can still see it over here.
But instead, it would be so much better to, eat all kinds of fruits and vegetables, etc. Get the real nutritions in. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Good to get that topic in a little. It's such an important topic. We don't talk about a lot. It can be difficult to talk about. A lot of taboos there, and things like that. So good to cover that. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. This has been fantastic. Thanks again, Sonja. It's been a lot of fun talking with you.
Thanks
And
for having me, Kaylin.
yeah, absolutely. Very welcome. Everybody remember to check out IntegerNet, check out the blog, Meet Magento Germany, the Welcome Wagon. If you have a challenge of the day, is for you to figure out the German word for Welcome Wagon and tell Sonja about it. You got to help her out. She needs to know the German word for Welcome Wagon. The funny thing about that is, isn't both welcome and wagon, aren't those like German origin words?
Willkommenswaggon, Willkommenswagen. It doesn't mean anything to anyone.
It doesn't
Yes.
work. Yeah.
Willkommensbereich, Willkommenslounge, Willkommensgruppe, Willkommenskomitee is probably something like a committee. We're welcome committee. We're so official here.
You're getting there. I can see the gears are turning in your head. I trust you're going to figure it out. You came up with Mage Christ, or Christ Mage, Christ Mage, which was a great word. So I trust, but help her out with that a little bit. Okay. Thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see you.